When we start thinking about using the pro forma feature of Qvinci, we have to shift our thinking a little bit. Up until now, what you've been looking at and what you've probably thought about is a company with multiple accounting units. A franchise is a great example because it's really easy to see what that looks like in terms of having a central sort of headquarters that needs to get reporting from lots of different locations. Qvinci is sort of built for that sort of thing specifically. However, it also lends itself to another use case that's a little bit different. So instead of thinking in terms of a company with lots of locations that are owned by that company or otherwise somehow related, such as in the case of a franchise, instead what I want you to think about is rather than putting a name in the company when you're setting it up, we're going to put an industry. Let's say you serve a lot of clients in the plumbing industry. Then the company you're going to set up is going to be called Plumbing Clients, let's say. And then within that, you're going to have each of your individual unrelated clients who are in the plumbing industry set up as different locations. This is going to enable you to aggregate all of their data and then create benchmark reporting. And you could, for example, look at your top 10 plumbing clients and compare them against one another so that you could then show reporting to your client without revealing whose data they're actually being compared against and give them a benchmark and say, here's how you're doing compared to the competition in your area. And if your clients are anything like my clients, then there's a good chance they're somewhat competitive in nature. And when you show them this kind of information, they're going to be motivated to want to do better, to want to beat out the competition. And that's where this pro forma feature of Qvinci gets extremely powerful. Come along, let's take a look. I'll show you what this looks like.
I used to be a firm believer that we shouldn't specialize, that we should just, if you understand the core fundamentals of accounting, they can be applied into almost any industry, and then it's just a matter of learning the specific nuances of that industry. But if you have that fundamental understanding of accounting, it was easy enough to learn it. And that had been my own experience. I had taken on a number of different industries over the years, and because I understood the accounting fundamentals, all I had to do really was have one interview with a client, have them describe their operations to me, and I could put together how the accounting should work and look. And that's how I actually learned how to service clients in many different industries. However, with the way things have gone and with this world of the cloud, that's changed, in my opinion. And the reasoning hasn't changed. I mean, I still believe if you understand the accounting fundamentals, you can service just about any industry or learn how to. What has changed, though, is that because of the business of the new world, and that new world meaning that we're working and functioning in the cloud, we have to specialize in an industry because depending on the industry and the business model of the client within that industry, we have to build the ecosystem, which means apps. And as we change industries, and sometimes even within a given industry, there could be a couple of different business models. With each change in business model, there's likely to be a change in the apps that need to be used for the ecosystems, which means we need to limit the number of apps that we need to learn in order to service all of our clients. So that comes back to why I think it's important to specialize. And that brings us to the pro forma feature of Qvinci. And the essence of what I'm going to show you here is based on a little bit of a variation on what you've seen. So when we initially set up a company in Qvinci, it was a company with, let's say, multiple locations. Now, in this case, when we create a company, we're going to create a company, but we're not going to name it for a company. We're going to name it for an industry. We're going to say we're going to create a company called My Plumbing Clients, right? And then we're going to add as a location each different client I have in the plumbing industry. And so let's say that if I go to manage locations, let's say that all these locations that we're looking at here, and I'll need to log in again. Let's say that all these locations that we have here, in this case, and let me switch over to the sample file where there's a lot more locations. Manage locations. All these different locations, let's say, actually represent different clients in the plumbing industry.
One of the things that's really important to consider when you're setting up the pro forma feature within Qvinci to serve your clients are the actual demographics. Each location, when you're setting it up, has sort of a built-in set of fields that you can use to describe specific information, such as the square footage of the facility. The, of course, geographic location is going to be looked at based on the address. But you're also able to set up your own custom fields, which again can be used to make sure that you're comparing apples with apples. For example, the square footage of a restaurant is very important when you're comparing it to other restaurants. Even if it's the same kind of restaurant, the difference in square footage can make a difference. And if the square footage of one versus the other deviates too much, then it really becomes uncomparable, especially in that particular industry, which is why I'm using it as the example. So it's really powerful, the fact that Qvinci provides you with the ability to really define very specific and, if need be, narrow descriptors that basically allow you to take each location and lay out the parameters that make them either comparable or incomparable. And that's the key, and that's what makes this so powerful, is that when you are providing that benchmark reporting, you can be extremely detailed, much more so than any other tools out there that claim to be able to do the same thing.
Okay, we'll just use that as the example. Now, first, if I go into reporting, Qvinci, as you'll see, has a lot of reports, but I want to focus your attention here on the peer benchmarking report. And if I go in here and I filter the locations, let's say I filter it for just Austin and apply the filters. And so we're going to look at the profit and loss, and let's say I want to compare it to the top 10%, and I'll use this calendar year to date. And then we'll do a vertical analysis, which means we'll look at the percent of revenue, and then we want to see the actual numbers too. So you're going to go through this and you're going to fill it out based on your criteria. Now, because we're benchmarking, there's a lot of other criteria, and all this can be set up as you set up your locations. You can even create custom criteria so that you can benchmark and sort of compare apples with apples, if you will, right? So I might want to only compare clients that are within a 1 mile location or have a population within a 1 mile location of 50 to 100,000. And it's showing me in parentheses that there are 13 companies essentially that this can be compared with on that basis. And now we'll click Build My Report. And what this does is it gives us a great report, which you can now see very clearly my client, Austin, and how it compares with the top 10%, which is actually 2 out of the 13 locations are considered to be in the top 10%. And you can look at this and see how we're doing compared with the benchmark group, right? And this is a great report. It's a powerful report. But what the pro forma piece does, which is what I'm going to show you now, is it sort of takes this concept, I want to say, to a whole new level, because it's going to give you a visual that's going to be probably much more appealing to your client even than this might be. If you have clients who are numbers oriented, then this is going to be great. But if I go into Tools and I go to Pro Forma, and then let's click on Austin, and I'm going to scroll to the right here. And what this starts to do is it starts to give me a very visual view with a comparison, and it explains it right here. It's based on the vertical analysis of the top 10% of our company, or in this case, it's the industry that we decided to set this up for. Now, I want to make this clear. This is a really good revenue opportunity. If you are specializing in an industry, you can set this up, and your clients will only be able to see themselves, but you can offer them that if they're willing to pay X number of dollars a month, you will send them, let's say, a monthly benchmark report that will show them how they stack up against competitors in their industry in the same area, let's say. And you can establish, like I said, other criteria by which they can be compared, so that if the square footage of the facility is relevant. From what I understand in the restaurant business, that's common, is that you look at income per square foot. So you can actually benchmark the criteria based on businesses with a similar square footage size. And what this does, of course, is, green is good, red is bad, and then it gives you the gray for the variance. And you can look at this and say, okay, here's our net income, here's our peer target, and it looks like we are well ahead of the target for the month to date variance, right? So this means we're doing very well. And then because we're at a certain part of the month, we're right at the beginning of March, and based on what we've got here so far, it's going to do a projected run rate based on the history so far and what that likely will look like between now and the end of the month. And of course, I can click back here on February and see what it looked like in the month of February, knowing that this is a completed month. Now, there's some things that you can that you're going to want to be aware of. The product, Qvinci, will go back as far as 2 years if that data is available to do the sort of comparative analysis, and it will also analyze trends and come up with your peer target, based on certain patterns. If your income tends to be higher in January, that's going to be taken into account. And really what this amounts to is that it's a roadmap for success for your company. And essentially what that translates to is, because we're using the top 10% as a benchmark for comparison, this means the peer target is what you need to run your business like the best in your industry. Right? And a lot of people, of course, focus on the income because that's exciting. But what can be really interesting to look at, of course, is the expenses. And see how you're doing, how efficient are you at running your company compared to the top 10% of your industry in a certain area, with other sort of demographics equalized as much as possible, right? So this is a kind of powerful reporting capability that you can provide to your clients if you specialize in an industry. If you're a franchise, of course, you have all your franchise locations, and using something like this is going to make it really easy to compare all your locations. And I don't know about you, but my experience with lots of people, with a lot of my clients, is that we tend to be competitive by nature. And I mean, I even remember I had a client run by two brothers, and they were very competitive to the point where they had me build a scorecard for them that compared how much each one took out of the business in every respect, whether it was income. They had an expense account that was used for entertaining clients, so that was factored in, and of course any distributions they took out of the company. I had to kind of line it all up, and they wanted to make sure that they were even on that. But coming back to this, I think it's also good in that sense. If you could get your clients, if you're an accountant or bookkeeper who's looking at this, and you can get your clients to take a close look at this, then they might see that, oh, I'm not doing that great compared to my competition. I need to do better. And again, like I said, I'll repeat it because I think it's important and it's powerful, is that the peer target here is what you need to run your business like the best in your industry. And there's a couple more things I want to show you here. So we can use this filter. So if I want to just look at engine sales, right, I can filter by just engine sales. And as you can see, it's showing me just that. So we're filtering here essentially based on the accounts that you'll see listed here. So if you have your chart of accounts structured in such a way that your income accounts and cost of goods sold accounts are named very similarly, then you can get a sort of by department comparison that way. The other thing is, let's say that you want to play sort of what-if scenarios, right? So we go into the month, and this is all the calculations are based off income, right? Everything is looked at in terms of percentage of income. So let's say we want to see what does it look like if, even though last year maybe my target was 533.27 up to this point, what if I want to increase that? Or let's go back to February so we can look at a whole month. So the period target was 2107, and we did 163,000. So we killed it, right? So it seems in sales, but of course when you look at expenses, it might be that we didn't kill it as much. That's why it's important to look at the whole picture. But one thing we can do is say, you know what? Forget about that. Since we're already, blowing the doors off of the competition, and at least in terms of net income, then let's take a look at just kind of setting our own goal or target and seeing what that looks like. So let's say next time I want the goal to be 250,000. So I can look at this, and it will update the calculations based on that. So now I could see what it will take to achieve that goal. So this is kind of playing if this, then that scenarios by changing the income. So, or if last year the income for the total for the year was 300, but I want to know what it takes to do 350,000, then I apply that, and I can look and see what things look like here. So now all of a sudden, notice my peer target went way up because now it's based on 350,000 instead of whatever it was before. So again, these are variables that you can play around with to get really useful information, and then you can send these reports to your clients and you can charge them for it. You can kind of frame it like they're going to participate in a benchmarking study, and what they're going to get is a monthly report that shows them how they stack up against their competition with similar demographics. That, my friends, is the Pro Forma tool in Qvinci in a nutshell. In any case, get started, play around with this, start getting used to how this stuff works, and start thinking in terms of how you can use this to provide a remarkable service to your clients. As always, I hope you had some fun and learned something along the way. And again, make sure you go through this, make sure you understand everything that I just went over here. And then when you're ready, we'll go to Lesson 4, which is where we're going to take a look at custom reports. Really, really cool, really powerful feature, yet another one that Qvinci offers. I'll see you in the next lesson.
As you can see, the Pro Forma feature of Qvinci provides a whole nother dynamic in which you can operate, especially as an accountant or bookkeeper servicing your clients. In fact, it gives you a really powerful tool that can help you build a whole other segment of your business in terms of what you can provide. And keep in mind the fact that you can charge for the service and probably charge a fair amount for your clients to sort of participate in a benchmark study. They'll love the information you're getting them. Now let's take a look at one other final and very important thing for this course for now, which is going to be the custom reporting. This is where you can really take advantage of this powerful consolidated information that you now have in one place.